I want you to think about someone, not a stranger, someone you know, someone you have sat across a table from, shared a meal with, laughed with. Maybe it was a parent, maybe a neighbor, maybe someone at your place of worship who you watched change slowly over months and years, losing words, losing names, losing the thread of a conversation they had started themselves. And maybe, watching that happen, a thought formed that you have never quite been able to shake. Is that where I am headed? I want to answer that question today, directly, with the research behind it. And the answer is not the one most people expect. I'm Dr. Arthur Sterling, and this is Dr. BodySignal. Today, I am going to tell you something that the conventional medical system rarely communicates with the clarity it deserves, because it doesn't fit neatly into a prescription pad or a 15-minute appointment. Up to 40% of dementia cases worldwide are attributable to modifiable risk factors. Factors you have direct influence over. Not genetics, not age, not fate. A landmark report published by the Lancet Commission on Dementia Prevention, Intervention, and Care, one of the most comprehensive analyses of dementia risk ever conducted, involving researchers from over 20 countries, identified 12 specific lifestyle and health factors that collectively account for 40% of all dementia cases globally. 40%. Preventable, addressable, available to change. The 3 habits I am going to give you today are not the 3 easiest habits. They are the 3 with the highest documented impact on cognitive preservation, specifically in adults over 55. They are the 3 where the research is most consistent, most replicated, and most clinically meaningful. But before I give you the 3 habits, I need to give you the biology, because without it, these habits will feel like general wellness advice. With it, they will feel like what they actually are, targeted interventions in a specific, measurable biological process. Stay with me through all 3. Because the 3rd habit is the one that produces the largest effect size in the research, and it is the one that almost nobody in this age group is doing consistently. And when I tell you what it is, your first reaction may be skepticism. I am asking you to hold that skepticism until I give you the mechanism, because the mechanism is what makes it undeniable. Before we go further, drop a comment right now and tell me this. Has someone in your immediate family, a parent, a sibling, been diagnosed with dementia or Alzheimer's? Write yes or no in the comments, because your family history changes how urgently these 3 habits apply to you, and I want to understand who I am speaking to today. Here's the biology you need to understand before everything else. Your brain is not a static organ. This is the single most important fact in all of cognitive aging research, and it is the fact that makes prevention possible. For most of the 20th century, neuroscience operated under an assumption that the adult brain was essentially fixed, that neurons you had were neurons you kept, that connections you formed in youth were the connections you relied on in old age, and that the loss of neurons with aging was irreversible and inevitable. That assumption is wrong, and the research that overturned it has transformed what we understand about dementia prevention. The brain possesses a property called neuroplasticity, the capacity to form new neural connections, strengthen existing ones, and in some regions generate entirely new neurons throughout the lifespan. The hippocampus, the brain's primary memory formation center, the first region damaged in Alzheimer's disease, is one of only 2 regions in the adult brain where neurogenesis, the birth of brand new neurons, continues throughout life. This means the hippocampus you have at 70 is not simply a diminished version of the hippocampus you had at 40. It is a dynamic structure that responds measurably, physically, to what you do with it and what you do to your body. And here's where the biology connects directly to the 3 habits. There is a protein in your brain called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. Think of BDNF as fertilizer for your neurons. It promotes the survival of existing neurons, stimulates the growth of new connections, and is the primary molecular signal that drives hippocampal neurogenesis. When BDNF levels are high, your brain grows and strengthens. When BDNF levels are chronically low, neurons shrink, connections weaken, and the risk of cognitive decline accelerates. BDNF is not fixed. It is not determined by your genetics alone. It responds directly, measurably within weeks to specific behaviors. The 3 habits I am about to give you are the 3 behaviors with the strongest documented effect on BDNF production, hippocampal volume, and long-term cognitive preservation in adults over 55. If you are still with me and this is making sense, type the number 1 in the comments. Habit number 1, aerobic exercise performed at a specific intensity, 3 to 5 times per week. Let me start with what most people already know and then tell you the part most people have never heard. Most adults know that exercise is good for the brain. It improves mood, reduces stress, supports cardiovascular health. Fine, that is not what I am telling you. What I am telling you is this: aerobic exercise, specifically exercise that elevates your heart rate to a moderate intensity for a sustained period, is the single most potent stimulus for BDNF production that has ever been identified in peer-reviewed research. More potent than any supplement, more potent than any cognitive training program, more potent than any pharmaceutical currently approved for dementia prevention. A landmark study by Dr. Kirk Erickson and colleagues at the University of Pittsburgh, published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, followed 120 older adults over 1 year. Half performed moderate aerobic exercise 3 times per week. Half performed stretching only. After 1 year, the aerobic exercise group showed a 2% increase in hippocampal volume. The stretching group showed a 1.4% decrease, the expected age-related atrophy. 2% growth versus 1.4% atrophy in 1 year. In adults averaging 66 years old, the hippocampus physically grew in a population where it is supposed to be shrinking. A 2020 meta-analysis published in the British Journal of Sports Medicine reviewed data from 39 randomized controlled trials involving over 3,000 adults over 50 and confirmed aerobic exercise consistently and significantly improved memory, executive function, and attention compared to sedentary controls. Now here is the precise specification that most people miss. The exercise needs to be aerobic, meaning it must elevate your heart rate. Walking at a casual pace does not qualify. The research consistently identifies a target zone of approximately 60 to 75% of your maximum heart rate. A simple estimation of your maximum heart rate is 220 minus your age. For a 65-year-old, that means a target range of approximately 93 to 117 beats per minute during exercise. This is what researchers call moderate intensity. You should be breathing noticeably harder than at rest. You should be able to say a few words but not carry on a full, uninterrupted conversation. This intensity, sustained for 20 to 45 minutes, 3 to 5 times per week, is the specific dose that the research supports. Walking briskly works, swimming works, cycling works, dancing works, and I will come back to dancing specifically when I discuss the third habit, because dancing produces effects beyond aerobic exercise alone. What does not work is exercising once a week at high intensity and then being sedentary for 6 days. The BDNF stimulus from exercise is acute. It rises during and after exercise and returns to baseline within approximately 48 hours. Consistency and frequency matter more than intensity. The minimum effective dose supported by the research for cognitive benefit, not cardiovascular benefit, not weight management, specifically cognitive benefit, is 150 minutes of moderate aerobic activity per week. Divided, however, works for your schedule: 3 50-minute sessions, 5 30-minute sessions. The biology does not care about the schedule. It cares about the cumulative stimulus. If you have joint pain, cardiovascular limitations, or mobility restrictions, I am not asking you to run. Seated cycling, water walking, arm ergometer exercise, or even brisk upper body movement while seated can elevate your heart rate into the target zone. The hippocampus responds to heart rate elevation regardless of how that elevation is achieved. Habit number 2, sleep optimization with a specific focus on slow-wave sleep duration. I want to address something directly before I explain this habit. Because when I tell adults over 60 that sleep is one of the 3 most important habits for dementia prevention, the response I frequently hear is, "I know sleep is important. I have heard that my whole life. I am already trying." What I am about to tell you is not that sleep is generally important. I am going to tell you specifically what happens in your brain during one particular stage of sleep and why the loss of that stage, which accelerates significantly after 60, is one of the most underappreciated drivers of cognitive decline in older adults. The stage is called slow-wave sleep, also known as deep sleep or N3. It occupies roughly 15 to 20% of total sleep time in young adults. In adults over 65, that percentage frequently drops to 5% or less, sometimes disappearing almost entirely. Here is what happens in your brain exclusively during slow-wave sleep. The glymphatic system, the brain's waste clearance network that I mentioned briefly in the context of sleep position in an earlier video, operates at maximum efficiency during slow-wave sleep and almost not at all during lighter sleep stages. During slow-wave sleep, cerebrospinal fluid pulses rhythmically through the spaces between your brain cells, washing out metabolic waste products that accumulated during the day. The most critical of these waste products are amyloid beta and tau proteins, the same proteins that aggregate into plaques and tangles in the brains of Alzheimer's patients. A single night of poor slow-wave sleep produces measurable increases in amyloid beta concentration in the brain. A 2019 study published in Science measured amyloid beta levels in the brains of healthy volunteers before and after one night of sleep disruption, specifically disruption of slow-wave sleep while preserving total sleep duration. Amyloid beta increased by 5% in a single disrupted night, 5% from one night. Now multiply that across months and years of chronically reduced slow-wave sleep, which describes the sleep architecture of a very large proportion of adults over 65, and the cumulative amyloid accumulation represents a direct, physiologically documented pathway from sleep disruption to Alzheimer's pathology. This is not a correlation, it is a mechanism, and it is reversible. Here are the 3 specific interventions with the strongest evidence base for increasing slow-wave sleep duration in older adults. First, bedroom temperature. I covered this in our Nocturia video, but the relevance here is even more critical. Slow-wave sleep initiation requires your core body temperature to drop. A bedroom temperature between 65 and 68 degrees Fahrenheit, 18 to 20 degrees Celsius, consistently produces longer and deeper slow-wave sleep compared to warmer environments. This is the single most impactful zero-cost environmental modification available. Second, alcohol elimination in the evening. I know this is unwelcome for many people, but the research on alcohol and slow-wave sleep is unambiguous. Alcohol induces sleep onset, it makes falling asleep easier, but it dramatically suppresses slow-wave sleep in the second half of the night. Even 1 to 2 drinks consumed within 3 hours of sleep measurably reduces slow-wave sleep duration. The brain experiences the sedation of alcohol as a substitute for genuine deep sleep, and it is not. The glymphatic clearance that should be occurring does not occur. The amyloid accumulation that should be prevented is not prevented. Third, consistent wake time combined with morning light exposure. Your brain's slow-wave sleep drive, the accumulation of sleep pressure over the course of the day, depends on a consistent, uninterrupted circadian rhythm. Morning light exposure within 30 minutes of waking resets your circadian clock with precision that no supplement can replicate. 15 minutes of outdoor light or a 10,000 lux light therapy lamp in winter, taken within 30 minutes of your consistent wake time, is one of the most powerful available tools for rebuilding the sleep architecture that produces adequate slow-wave sleep. Type the word sleep in the comments if you know your sleep quality has declined in the last 5 years. Because what you may have attributed to simply getting older may actually be a reversible disruption in the specific sleep stage your brain needs most. Habit number 3, social engagement combined with cognitive novelty, practiced deliberately and consistently. I told you at the beginning that this third habit would produce skepticism, that your first reaction might be, that cannot really be as important as exercise or sleep. I am going to give you the research and let it speak for itself. A 2021 study published in The Lancet followed over 15,000 adults across multiple countries for an average of 10 years. After controlling for every other variable, cardiovascular health, education, socioeconomic status, genetics, social isolation emerged as an independent risk factor for dementia with a hazard ratio of 1.57. Meaning people who were socially isolated had a 57% higher risk of developing dementia than those who were socially engaged, regardless of their other health factors. 57% from social isolation alone. The biology explains why. Social interaction is one of the most cognitively demanding activities the human brain performs. When you engage in a real conversation with another person, reading their facial expressions, tracking the thread of what they are saying, formulating your own response, managing the emotional dynamics of the exchange, you are simultaneously activating your prefrontal cortex, your temporal lobes, your mirror neuron system, your hippocampus, and your limbic system. A genuine social exchange is a full brain workout. And here's the specific component that amplifies the effect significantly: cognitive novelty. The research distinguishes clearly between routine social interaction, the same conversations with the same people about the same topics, and cognitively novel social interaction, which involves learning something new, encountering unfamiliar perspectives, or applying existing skills in new social contexts. The activities with the highest documented cognitive protection in the research are those that combine physical movement, social interaction, and cognitive novelty simultaneously. Which is why dancing, specifically partner dancing or group dancing that requires learning and remembering sequences, appears in multiple longitudinal studies as one of the most powerful single activities for cognitive preservation. A study published in the New England Journal of Medicine, the famous Einstein aging study, followed seniors over 21 years and compared the cognitive effects of numerous leisure activities. Partner dancing showed the highest reduction in dementia risk of any physical activity studied, 76% lower risk compared to sedentary controls, higher than swimming, higher than cycling, higher than golf, 76%. The researchers attributed this to the unique combination of aerobic exercise, social connection, emotional engagement, and the continuous demand for spatial memory and sequential learning that partner dancing requires. I am not telling every person watching this video to take up ballroom dancing. I am telling you what the research says about what happens when you combine movement, social connection, and cognitive novelty in a single activity. The same principle applies to learning a musical instrument with a group, to joining a language learning class, to participating in a book club that engages you in genuine discussion, to volunteering in roles that require you to teach or explain something to others, to any activity that places you regularly in social interaction around content that is genuinely challenging to your existing mental patterns. The critical distinction is novelty. Playing the same card game you have played for 40 years with the same people does not produce the same cognitive stimulus as learning a new card game, or engaging with people whose perspectives genuinely challenge yours, or joining a group that is working on something you have never done before. Your brain builds new connections in response to demands it has not encountered before. Routine, by definition, stops making those demands. Novel challenge, social context, and physical movement together create the conditions your brain needs to continue growing rather than simply maintaining. Here is the action protocol. This week, audit your current week against these 3 habits. Not harshly, honestly. How many minutes of heart rate elevating aerobic exercise did you perform? What was your sleep environment, bedroom temperature, alcohol consumption, morning light exposure, and how many of your social interactions this week involved genuine novelty, something you learned, something that challenged you, something you had not encountered before? The audit is not a judgment, it is a baseline. You cannot improve what you have not measured. Starting this week, choose one of the 3 habits to anchor first, not all 3 simultaneously. 1. The research on behavior change consistently shows that single habit anchoring followed by gradual addition produces more durable change than attempting multiple simultaneous interventions. My recommendation for first anchor aerobic exercise. Because it directly elevates BDNF, directly supports slow-wave sleep quality through its effect on sleep pressure and core temperature regulation, and creates the physical energy that makes social engagement feel possible rather than effortful. It is the habit that makes the other 2 habits easier. The monitoring tool I recommend for this habit, a simple heart rate monitor worn during exercise. Not a sophisticated smartwatch necessarily, a basic chest strap or wrist-based heart rate. Monitor that allows you to confirm you are reaching and sustaining the 60 to 75% maximum heart rate zone during your exercise sessions. The research benefit is specifically tied to reaching this zone. Without monitoring, most people exercising at what they call moderate intensity are actually exercising at a significantly lower heart rate than the research requires. This week, identify one socially novel activity available in your community. A class, a group, a volunteer role, a learning program. 1, put it in your calendar. Not as a thought, as a scheduled commitment. And tonight, lower your bedroom temperature before you sleep. If you do nothing else from this video tonight, do that. Because the glymphatic clearance that either happens or doesn't happen tonight is processing the amyloid accumulation of the last 24 hours. You cannot get tonight back. What I want you to take away from today is this. Dementia is not a sentence handed down by your genetics. It is not simply the inevitable conclusion of aging. It is, in 40% of cases, the accumulated result of specific modifiable factors, and 3 of the most powerful of those factors are the ones we covered today. Aerobic exercise that elevates your heart rate and stimulates BDNF production. Slow-wave sleep that allows your brain's glymphatic system to clear the proteins that become Alzheimer's plaques. And social engagement combined with cognitive novelty that keeps your neural networks growing rather than contracting. None of these require a prescription. None require a specialist referral. None require a perfect body or a perfect history. They require a decision, made today, repeated consistently. The person you were thinking of at the beginning of this video, the one whose decline you watched, whose name you might not have said out loud, but whose face came to mind, that person's story is not the only possible story. It is not your story by default. Your brain is adaptive. It is responsive. It is, right now, waiting for the conditions that allow it to build rather than erode. Today, you have those conditions. You know what they are. If this video gave you something concrete, a mechanism that changed how you understand your own brain, a habit you will now begin, please hit the subscribe button and click the notification bell. Because every week on this channel, Dr. Arthur Sterling decodes another signal your body is sending you and gives you the research-backed response. And before you go, drop a comment telling me which of the 3 habits you are going to anchor first: exercise, sleep, or social novelty. Your commitment matters, and it may be exactly the reason someone else watching this video decides to start today. Your brain is not finished growing. Neither are you. Take good care.